What's cooking, guys? For Alligator here, and today I'm bringing you my first webcam battle report. I joined an online webcam tournament hosted by Midnight PTCG PH last July 26. I brought my Cynthia's Garchomp EX deck and battled against Sir Gavin with his Tyranitar Item Lock for round 1. The event was 4 rounds long, and I managed to fight against, like I mentioned, Sir Gav's Tyranitar deck, a Crustle deck, and 2 Dragapult Dusk Noir decks. Sadly, I zoned out during the other rounds and I actually forgot to hit record on my computer. So sadly, I don't have footage for those other games. But if you're interested in other battle reports like this one, please let me know in the comments below so I can keep an eye out and do more webcam battle reports in the future. So here we start the official turn 1 of the game. I believe I had to mulligan once, giving Sir Gav a single card advantage. I only placed 1 basic Pokemon in my active, and I believe Sir Gav had 2. I didn't actually draw a good starting hand, so I had to start with a Cynthia Spiritomb in my active. Sir Gav started with a Shaman in his and a Dreepy in his bench. My initial impressions upon seeing the starting deck was actually that I was facing a Dragapult deck. And because I saw the Dreepy, my initial thoughts when I played the Buddy Bunny Poppin was I needed to get a Reller out. I actually made a mistake. I forgot I was playing first. I actually revealed my Arbin in my hand, so I gave free information to my opponent. But going back, because I saw the Dreepy, I decided to pull out a Cynthia's Gibble and a Reller, thinking that having a Rabska in my bench would be beneficial in this match. So after resolving the effects of the Buddy Buddy Poppin, I pass my turn, and we start with Sir Gav's turn 1. Compared to me, Sir Gav had a relatively amazing turn 1. He managed to put a Dark Energy and a TM Evo onto the Shaman, which was surprising because, like I mentioned, I thought this was a Dragapult deck. But seeing the dark really confused me. So he also managed to drop a Team Rocket's Watchtower onto the field, and I believe he just ends the turn with an evolution and evolves the Dreepy into a Draclo, which was beneficial for me that he didn't have more in his bench. So my turn 2 was actually really good. I managed to top deck a Precious Trolley, if I remember correctly, and that was what I really needed previously. So now when I use this Arbin, I don't have to look for the Precious Trolley. I decide to look for a Earthen Vessel instead and a TM Evo, the combo that I actually want to run if I run turn 2. So with this, the Earthen Vessel solves my previous problem of having no energy, because if you've noticed, I did not do an energy attach for my previous turn. I now have at least 2 guaranteed energies for the next 2 turns. Well, not counting this turn, wherein I believe I will attach it to my Spiritomb to enable the use of evolution. So now I play the Precious Trolley that I top decked earlier. I believe I'm resolving this and the Earthen Vessel at the same time. And just to be clear, for the discard cost, I discard a copy of Energy Retrieval so that I can play the Earthen Vessel legally. I'm resolving both the Precious Trolley and the Earthen Vessel at the same time, mainly because, if I didn't mention it earlier, the tournament has a strict time limit. And if we do run out of time, we actually get penalized with a double game loss. Draws are not good for this situation. So for my Precious Trolley, I find another copy of Cynthia's Gibble and 2 copies of Cynthia's Roselias to fill up my bench. For the Earthen Vessels, I picked 2 basic fighting energies. I don't even have other energies anyway. So yeah, like I mentioned, I am now guaranteed 1 energy this turn and 1 energy for the next turn. So I now attach one of the basic fighting energies that I pulled onto the Spiritomb and TM Evo as a finisher. So I use the evolution granted by TM Evo to evolve one of my Gibbles into a Cynthia's Gabite. And I'm still under the illusion that my opponent is running a Dragapult deck, so I pick out Rabska and evolve the Reller, assuming that I needed the protection from Phantom Dive. So after resolving the TM Evo, I pass my turn, and we begin with Gab's turn 2. So his turn was relatively simple. I believe he just uses a Recon Directive to pick out one of the best of his top 2 cards and put 1 at the bottom. He then places another Dreepy onto the bench, so this just reinforces the illusion that he's running a Dragapult deck. And after that, I believe he throws out a nice full art boss to switch out my Spiritomb for a Cynthia's Roselia, probably trying to slow me down at that point. After resolving the boss, he passes turn, and I begin my turn 3. So my turn 3 begins, I draw a card, and decide to start things off with using Cynthia's Gabite's ability, Champion's Call, which lets me look for any copy of Cynthia's Pokemon and put it into my hand. So to speed things up, I declare my intent to my opponent. I will first look for another copy of Cynthia's Gabite and evolve the Gibble I have on the bench, and then use its Champion's Call ability again to look for a copy of Cynthia's Roserade and evolve the Roselia on the bench. So at this point, I'm just looking at my hand and I don't really have any good plays. That boss was a good thing for my opponent and slowed me down quite a bit. So I believe I just attach a fighting energy onto the first Cynthia's Gabite that I had, hoping that I'll be able to find something and work with my hand the next turn. So I just pass my turn and prepare for the worst. So Gab's turn 3 begins, and he starts off by evolving the Dreepy into a Dracloak and uses Recon Directive to pick the best of his top 2 cards, and I believe he manages to pick a Larvitar from the top deck and places it on the bench. He uses the second Dracloak's ability and does the same, and then passes turn. So seeing the Larvitar now on the bench immediately sets sets of alarms in my head, as I've never actually seen the Tyranitar deck prior to this. Or at least I've never seen a variant with Dracloaks as a support. So my turn 4 was relatively simple. I thought I had to get more information and set up my board as best as I can. So I used Champion's Call twice, looking for another copy of Cynthia's Roserade and a copy of my Cynthia's Garchomp EX. So after shuffling my deck, I just evolve the Gabite with the energy into the Garchomp and the active Roselia into a Roserade. And then I pass my turn. Gav had a very spicy follow-up. He starts off his turn with a rare candy, evolving the Larvitar into a Tyranitar. He then uses the Dracloak's ability again, and this just goes to show how powerful the Dracloak's ability is actually. Like, you can get to see your top 2 cards, put the worst one at the bottom, and pick the one you need. So with him having 2 Dracloaks, he has access to at least 4 cards in his deck. Well, not necessarily access, he gets to see 4 of his cards and picks the best 2 and bottoms the worst. Now, I'm not sure if he got these cards off of those, but he manages to put a Larvitar onto the bench and a Reversal Energy onto the Tyranitar. And follows up with a Buddy Buddy Poffin, and puts another Dreepy on his bench, and then passes the turn. I still haven't pulled something to get an advantage in this game, so I just have to use Champion's Call and try to trim down my deck as much as possible, so I do get to the cards that will actually get me the win. So I just pick out Cynthia's Roserade and then pass the turn. Gab starts off his turn by evolving his Larvitar into a Pupitar. He uses both of his Dracloak's Recon Directive to filter out his cards. He then just simply passes the turn, preferring to set up. For me, I draw a card and then attach Cynthia's Power Weight into the Garchomp. I haven't been drawing very well, if I remember correctly, so my only option is to use Champion's Call and pull out as much of my cards as I can to bring me to the efficient trainer cards that I might need. So in this turn, I just pull out another Cynthia's Gibble and pass the turn. My opponent starts off his turn by drawing a card and activating Recon Directive, and I believe he might have pulled another Tyranitar from the first ability, so he evolves his Pupitar into another Tyranitar. He then uses another Recon Directive, and seeing that he has the opportunity to set up, he prefers to pass the turn and wait for the board to develop so that he has an advantage. I can see that Gab's board is starting to look a little bit scary. I know that once his Tyranitar gets into the active zone, I won't be able to use any of the items that I might draw. and it looks like I've just been drawing poorly and I forgot to use Champion's Call to trim down or shuffle my deck further, and I just passed the turn. And Gav just continues on doing Recon Directive, filtering out his draws, and just developing further. He uses another Recon Directive to filter out his hand, and I believe his next play might have been because of the draw, but I can't tell because he has a lot of cards in his hand at this point. He then plays a Jack and fetches a third Draclo. I'm not sure how long he's had that Jack in his hand. He might have drawn it recently thanks to the Recon Directives. He then evolves the Dreepy into another Draclo after he shuffles, and then activates another Recon Directive. He then retreats the Shaman for the Tyranitar with the energy, and this signals a huge swing in the battle in favor of Gav, as Tyranitar's passive ability is essentially an unlimited item lock. We had a bit of an accident, but it was an easy fix. So once that was done, Gav continues with his turn by playing Pokemon League Headquarters, replacing the Stadium, attaching a basic Dark Energy onto the Tyranitar, and a Luxurious Cape to buff up its HP. He then activates Cracking Stomp to kill my Roserade, and milling the top two of my deck. We see the basic Fighting Energy and Iono go into the discard pile, while I promote my Garchomp into the active zone. So I really had to sit and think about my turn for now. I haven't been getting my energies for the entire game, but we did see one of the energies go into the discard pile thanks to Cracking Stomp. I had to figure out a way to get that energy into my hand. I knew I had a Night Stretcher in hand from turn 1 or very many turns ago, but thanks to Tyranitar's Item Lock, it was difficult to actually do that. And then I realized I had Boss's Orders, which I drew from turn 1, and it was just sitting in my hand. So I think that was the only out that I had for this game. So I needed to get rid of the Tyranitar thanks to Boss's Orders, and I had to stop Gav's significant card advantage. So I chose one of the Dracloaks as my target. With the Tyranitar out of the way, I could play the Night Stretcher, and I chose the energy, put it into my hand, and put it into the Garchomp, just to prepare for when the Tyranitar comes back. I also had to recover my resources, so I played a Super Rod and put the Roselia and Roserade back into the deck. It also gives me an opportunity to shuffle the deck, but that wasn't really needed as I could use Champion's Call together. So once I put both cards back in the deck, I just had to pull out the Roselia once again and put it into my bench. After shuffling my deck, I continue my turn and evolve the benched Gabite into a Cynthia's Garchomp. I then use Corkscrew Drive to knock out the Draclo, but am unable to draw cards since I believe I had a huge hand at that point. So once the Dracloak was killed, Gav promotes the Tyranitar with the Luxurious Cape again and starts his turn. And he starts with putting a Dark Energy into the benched Tyranitar and activating Recon Directive. Once he resolved the first Recon Directive, he decides to use another. Man, that Dracloak is just paying in dividends. So I'm not sure if he managed to get this boss's orders from the recon directives, but he decides to play it to put one of my Roserades, or the only Roserade I have left, into the active zone, and knocks it out thanks to Cracking Stomp, milling my deck for 2 as well. After the attack is resolved, I promote the loaded Garchomp and start my turn. So my turn then starts. We completely forget about Cracking Stomp's secondary effect, and I draw a card instead of discarding the top 2 cards of my deck. So off of the top deck, I attach a Cynthia's Power Weight into the backup Garchomp, and another Cynthia's Power Weight from my hand into the Cynthia Spiritomb. And I now evolve the Roselia into a Roserade. I know I've had it for quite a long time thanks to the earlier Champions calls. And then right now I'm thinking about what to do, and I put a Pheasantipity into play, and I use Flip the Script. It's at this point that we remember that we should have discarded the top 2 cards off of my deck thanks to Cracking Stomp. But luckily I remembered what I drew. So the first card I drew for the turn was the Cynthia's Power Weight, and the first card I drew off of Flip the Script was the Super Rod. So I actually got lucky with one of the draws from the Flip the Script, and I managed to get another Cynthia's Power Weight, and this time put it back onto the Spiritomb, this time legally. And I believe another card I drew from Flip the Script was a basic Fighting Energy, which I promptly attached into the backup Garchomp. With Tyranitar having a huge HP pool thanks to Luxurious Escape, I had to use Draconic Buster in order to OTK it. And it's a big benefit for me because the side effect of Luxurious Escape is it treats your basic Pokemon like an EX, so I get 2 prize cards off of that. Gav now promotes the second Tyranitar, and he continues his turn. Gav starts out his turn strong by playing Neutralization Zone, knocking out the Pokemon League headquarters he placed initially. And this is huge for him because, as you can see, all of his Pokemon are non-rulebox Pokemons. And Neutralization Zone essentially gives all of his Pokemon the same ability as Mimikyu's Safeguard. So I can't deal damage to his Pokemon with my Garchomps as long as the Neutralization Zone is active. So while he was actually explaining this to me, he actually also used the Recon Directive ability from one of his Dracloaks and filtered the top 2 cards of his deck, getting the best one and bottoming the other. Again, the best card of the top 2 cards of his deck and bottoms the worst one. And I believe from that top 2, he managed to pull a Reversal Energy, and attaches it to his Tyranitar. He follows up by playing a Buddy Buddy Puffin and picking up another Larvitar. So after he finishes his shuffle, he activates Cracking Stomp, dealing 150 damage to my Garchomp and milling the top 2 cards of my deck. And here we see a TM Evo go to the discard pile and an Arven. So for my turn, I believe I top deck a Pokemon League headquarters, but I start off by attaching a basic Fighting Energy on the backup Garchomp. I then play the Pokemon League headquarters to knock out the Neutralization Zone, enabling my Garchomps to attack. But I actually retreat the primary Garchomp and promote the backup Garchomp with 2 basic Fighting Energies. I then use Draconic Buster to knock out the Tyranitar, but I have to discard both of the Fighting Energies attached to the Garchomp to pay for the cost. He then promotes the Larvitar as his active Pokemon, and I end my turn. Gav starts his turn with an Iono, which was pretty devastating for me because I could only draw 2 cards while putting my entire hand, which was practically half my deck at that time, to the bottom of my deck. And I could only draw 2, while he had a fresh 4-card hand with 2 recon directives to bring that up to 6, which he uses immediately to filter the top 2 cards of his deck, getting the best one, and he does it again. So that gives him another 2 cards to filter and pick the best, and I believe he manages to pull a rare candy from the second recon directive, and using it evolves his active Larvitar into a Tyranitar. And I believe he also had a backup reversal energy, probably from the Iono. So he attaches it to the Tyranitar, enabling it to attack. And he uses Cracking Stomp, dealing 150 to my Garchomp, and forcing me to discard the top 2 cards of my deck. And we see another Garchomp hit the discard pile and an Arvid, which was pretty devastating in all honesty. So the only out that I had was being able to use the Spiritomb, but the Pokemon League headquarters was actually nerfing it. But I managed to get lucky, and the card that I drew off the top of my deck was an energy. So I was able to attack with Spiritomb after attaching the basic fighting energy. So it dealt 300 damage thanks to both of the Garchomps having 150 damage each. After knocking out the Tyranitar, Gav promotes his Shaymin and starts his turn. He starts by using 2 recon directives, trying to find a way to fight back. But at this point, I think he already said that he might not have any outs. So I just mentioned, let's see if we can, finish the game. Maybe there is something that he might not have seen or not have remembered. So we continue on, and he plays a Munkidori and I believe a Budew, probably from both recon directives. And then he attaches a basic Dark Energy onto the Munkidori. He then plays a Professor's Research, discarding 2 cards, a Team Rocket's Watchtower, and a Rare Candy. So after discarding, he draws a fresh grip of 7 cards. From his new grip of 7, he plays a Super Rod, and he's deciding on what cards to put back into his deck. And he decides to recover a full line of Tyranitar into the deck, mainly a copy of Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar. He then plays a switch to swap out his Shaymin for his Budew, and uses Itchy Pollen and passes the turn. So my opponent at this point is very clear that, he said he didn't have any outs anymore. The only way that he could have probably slowed the game down was to boss the Spiritomb and gust up maybe the Rabsca or a Roserade. But at that point, it was too late. On my turn, I just played Raging Curse for the win. GG's to my opponent, and thank you to Midnight PCT GPH for hosting the webcam tournament. I actually enjoyed it. I hope I can find more time to actually play again. If you like this type of content, please let me know in the comments below. With YouTube's new algorithm, it really helps small YouTube creators like me to get a leg up into the industry. So thank you very much. If you've stayed up until this point, don't forget to comment, subscribe, like I mentioned. Anything helps. And thank you very much. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Fear out.